So as you guys can tell by the title of the video, I do regret buying this F-150 Lightning, and I'm going to go through all of the reasons why and why this still might make a good sense of purchase for you if you do want an EV truck. We're gonna actually go ahead and open up the frunk for one of the last times and sit in it as I go over some of these reasons, because this can't get old and I will miss it. So for a little bit of backstory, I bought this truck 6 months ago and I've already put almost 7,000 miles on it. So I have driven it quite a bit, more than, you know, your average person would really, especially given that I have multiple cars. So it is a usable vehicle. I would say that one of the main things that I'm kind of regretting is I believe that electric charging would have been a lot cheaper than it truthfully is, especially compared to gas and how the gas prices are going down, at least where I live in Ohio. Now, not only at home is it a lot more expensive than you would think, but if you plan on charging anywhere else other than your house, you'll basically be paying the same, if not more, than gas. I've seen prices as high as 60 cents per kilowatt hour, and that only gets you about 2 miles if you're lucky. On the highway, it can get you as little as 1.5 if it's winter. And that's going to kind of tie into my next point, is that I did not have the most success charging at these public charging stations. As we go ahead and close the front here, what I mean by that is it's really hit or miss with these public charging stations. There are really great apps out there that will tell you, you know, charging stations that are working, but they're not always accurate, and there could be somebody there even though it says that there's not somebody there. So not only that, but I have had a couple of bad experiences with this truck overall. We're gonna hop on the inside to show you guys exactly what I mean by that. So a couple of times while I was driving, I did actually have the little gear icon come up down here. I'll show a screenshot of the exact code that it said that I had, but both times that that actually happened, I did have an update that was pending, so I think that they were just trying to force me to update. But again, you're having to update your vehicle. Like, it's just weird. It doesn't really fit what we're used to driving, especially trucks. Like, having to update something to drive it just is kind of annoying. It's not a phone. Now, luckily, those did both fix themselves, so not a big issue. I called it in, and they said that it would probably fix with the software update, and it did. If you guys also have a F-150 Lightning, and that happened to you and it went away when you updated it, let me know down in the comments, because that is a little bit weird. I thought that was super weird. One of the weirdest things I've ever had happen in any car. Now, that also reminds me, if you guys are enjoying this video and you think that what I'm saying is actually relevant to you, then go ahead and hit that sub button. I do a ton of stuff. We won't be doing as much EV stuff coming up, but we've got a lot of cool car content coming to this channel. I'm learning a lot about new cars, German cars, exotics, stuff like that. So if you're into that, hit the sub button. So we're actually going to jump back to my house, and I'm going to go over the charging station. So not only is the charging expensive elsewhere, but to get fast charging at your house, you need to install this level 2 charger from Ford, and it is not cheap. Luckily, I knew somebody that got it done cheaper for me, but it would cost a lot more, and it still was expensive. I had to get stuff ran all the way down my wall, down the back wall, and down into my basement, and that is thick wire, so that's a lot of copper. It costed quite a bit of money to get this fast charger put in just so I could charge my car. Now, some of you might be lucky and you might have a power box in your garage, so you could put this like 2 feet away from your actual main panel, but unfortunately I live in Ohio and mine is all the way in the basement, so this is what we had to do. So now that you guys have seen the charging station, let's go over another thing I'm gonna miss, which is this actual power tailgate. This thing is awesome. It comes down automatically, and it does actually close automatically, but let's go ahead and hop in here and keep talking. So kind of on the topic of charging, the range does actually go down quite significantly if it is either cold, or I haven't seen anybody else say this, if it is super hot, like above 92, 93 degrees, it suffers even more than it does in the cold. Now, overall, the charging of this truck is not that bad if you do have that charging station at home. So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, which the next topic will unfortunately be price. Now, these trucks are extremely pricey, especially at MSRP. So if you're paying MSRP for one of these, do not buy one. Even with the incentives that you get from the government and from Ford dealerships, this truck is still extremely expensive, and honestly kind of offsets that price savings that they try to sell the car with, you know, with saving on gas, but really it's not that much. the little bit of money that you make back from gas, you're paying for with buying this truck overall. It's more expensive than any gas truck, especially brand new. Now, if you are dead set on buying one of these, I would recommend buying one used, especially with the extended range battery. Do not even mess with not extended range batteries. Now, as we kind of close this up here, I'm gonna get on to my last point, which is kind of the power of this truck. It does have over 500 horsepower and 775 pound-feet of torque. It really gets old. It doesn't have a soul to it. It's not a gas engine, and you never really will get that gas engine feel out of an electric car. It almost feels like a go-kart, but a lot less playful. Now, luckily for the Lightning, there are a ton of great things, and we're gonna go over those now. Those were kind of my main gripes with the car. I mean, it's not a terrible truck, but it really doesn't fit my needs, especially the fact that you cannot go very far with this thing. Being limited on how far you can go almost defeats the purpose of a truck. Like if you, for say, need to go pick up something with a trailer that is 300 miles away, you will not be able to do it with this. Even I wouldn't even recommend doing it 130 miles away one way. That's 260 total. You'll be pushing it with this thing even without a trailer. So definitely keep that in mind if you do need a truck for truck things. This is not going to do everything for you that a normal gas or diesel truck can. But let's go ahead and roll into the positives a little bit, because there are quite a few positives to this truck. Now, overall, as we open up this door, the truck is an amazing vehicle. I mean, the interior is, I'd say, pretty luxury compared to most other trucks. You get some pretty nice door panels. You get a pretty big screen. Now, you can actually get a massive screen in this, but I actually prefer the buttons to be down here for all the climate controls, volumes, and stuff like that. But you do get a lot of storage room up here. You get a bunch of storage room in here. And if we do open up the back, this place folds up. The seats fold up so that you can actually have a ton of room back here. This is literally like having a full trunk of an SUV right here in your truck. And it also has a bed. Which, on the topic of the bed, it does not come with this tonneau cover or the actual protective liner inside like I have, but it is honestly a pretty sizable truck bed. It's not a super small bed like the Rangers or Maverick. This actually has a pretty decent sized bed. Now, this is an actually very, very comfortable truck, but that being said, you are still gonna feel the weight of this thing. It is a very, very heavy truck. I'll pull up the spec sheet of it right now. And that weight you will feel in the corners while you're going over bumps. It's gonna kind of bounce up one too many times, I would say. It handles them very well, but it does kind of bounce up and down. You guys know what I'm talking about if you have ridden in one of these things. Now, where you really will feel this weight is when you are braking. This thing takes a while to slow down. It doesn't feel like it's taking a while to slow down. It will throw you up in your seat kind of, but trust me, it's not slowing down as fast as it feels. Now, this truck does ride great overall. It's not very fatiguing, and it's very, very, very quiet in the interior. But as you notice right now, I like to drive with my windows down, and I'll show you guys a very big concern that I have with this truck. I have the XLT, top XLT trim, and it doesn't come with the little back window, the power back window, and that makes it almost impossible to drive at speeds anywhere over 50 miles an hour. With the windows down, it makes an insanely loud noise in here. But now let's go over the actual range that you will see in this truck. I'm going to throw up a spec sheet of what they say you'll get, and then we're going to go over what I get right now. So as you can see, I just drove 4.5 miles and I got 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour, but that honestly is because I drove pretty conservatively here. If we go to my overall trip, we'll see that it has 2.0 miles per kilowatt hour. I've driven for 180 miles and went 6,579 miles. Now, that 2.0 miles per kilowatt is not that amazing. I have found that especially on the highway, I get an average of like 1.6, 1.7-ish on the highway. Now, if you go a lot slower, you can get that 1.8, I believe is what they advertise it at. They might even advertise it at 2, but I don't think that unless you're going like 50 on the highway, you're gonna get anywhere near a 2.0. Now, on the flip side of that, around town driving, like if you're in a city where it's 35, 40 most of the time and you're stopping and going at stoplights, you're gonna regen a lot of braking power from stopping a lot, and you're basically gonna get to travel for free. Like if you drive a 5-mile drive around town, you could do that literally for probably a year straight without charging this truck. Don't quote me on that, but you honestly probably could if you were really trying to. So now keep in mind, this is still a truck. You can still tow with it. You can put a hitch in it, and you can put a bunch of stuff in the bed if you truly do want to. So to wrap this up, my final thoughts are this just is not the vehicle for me anymore. If you guys follow this channel, you guys know that I have an M4 and a Dark Horse, and I bought my fiance an S4, but I want to get rid of this and get an all-wheel drive sports car. I've actually been looking at the supercharged Audi, the B8.5, the S5. It's a manual and it has a supercharger, so it's basically a Hellcat on a budget, and it's all-wheel drive just like this. Now on that note, I do not recommend an EV as your only car. If this is your only car, do not get an EV because you're going to be very limited on what you can actually go do. For example, my grandpa lives a little over 100 miles away, and in the winter, I would be very, very scared of making that trip. I would have to stop before I either go home or go all the way there to charge, and that just adds a ton of time because if somebody like him, for example, he lives out in the country, so there's not a bunch of chargers around, it would add another half an hour of just driving time to my trip. Now I know what you're thinking, and I said this too, oh well, if I want to go on a long trip, say over 300 miles, say I want to go 1,000 miles on a road trip with the family, you'll just stop and, you know, charge a little bit longer and add a little bit of time to the trip. Now if you have another car, which I do recommend having another car if you have an EV, you will not ever end up taking this thing any longer than 200 miles. Trust me. Truth be told, an actual gas truck will never be able to be replaced. There's fueling everywhere, you can take it wherever you want to, and if something breaks, if you have a little bit of mechanical knowledge, you can fix it yourself. Not to mention, if something does go wrong, usually it's not catastrophic, so you can at least limp it home or to a mechanic shop if you don't work on stuff yourself. With an EV, however, you won't really have that luck. It'll probably just be dead. So if you guys agreed or disagreed with anything I said, make sure that you guys put it in the comments. If I did actually help you out on talking you out of buying a Lightning or into buying a Lightning, drop a like, subscribe, and can't wait to see you guys in the next one.